Did you interact with anyone on the anti-GamerGate side?
Well, plenty of people. There was a really great artist, and I wish I remember her name. She drew the picture of Vivian James and Lillian Woods sitting down over Christmas, the first year of GamerGate, and just sitting down playing video games. She did that, and I talked to her, and she was such a great person. I joked around with the Man in Black, so like I actually did a 3D model of his little pixelated thing because I kind of figured he was one of the people who was okay with it at the time. Miles Cheong was anti-GamerGate and eventually became GamerGate. I talked to him, like I just tweeted him a few times. I didn't talk to him directly. Um,
Well, he was a
Probably the one.
pure grifter, right? He grifted the far left social justice people, and then he tried to grift the anti-social justice warrior people, and now he's trying to grift like the Trump right.
And that's where I'm like, I really don't like you, Ian, but uh, but so I mean, either case, like I did like the fact that at least he kind of admitted that whatever was going on with all the stuff going with the games journalism, he admitted that at least there was a problem. As far as where he went with that, it's sort of like everyone else who sort of went their own separate ways at GamerGate. They, whatever. I mean, I don't really care about that part, but it's like it's all on them. What they chose to do with it. For me, I just chose to be quiet, focus on my family, and and focus on that part. So yeah, and coming out to say hi to you. So, but in any case, like any other person I interacted, I think at great length at Anti GamerGate was Sarah Nyberg, and basically she was probably the most dishonest person I talked to because as I tried to talk to her, she would reframe everything I said and repost it and completely recontextualize anything I said and reframing it as something totally either misogynistic or like saying things like, "Oh yeah, you're dismissing people's suffering and all sorts of things." I'm like, that's not what I meant. And that, but she decided to do that because that was her thing, was taking people's posts out of context and reframing it, showing that GamerGators were terrible people. So
And obviously, there were allegations, but we don't have to get into those. About
no, but
yeah,
uh,
let's
there are a
move
lot.
on.
There are a
Let's
lot.
move on.
I think the worst people, the worst actors on both sides, kind of like have eaten a lot of crow for what they've done. And that's probably the thing that over the years I've sort of looked at and said, someone needs to do something about that. And I said, but if we wait long enough, they'll hang themselves. And a lot of them have. Well, metaphorically speaking.
In Minecraft.
Yeah, in Minecraft. No, but you know what I mean? Like for instance, feminist frequency is over. It's like, all right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the jokey hang themselves is going to translate into text as well as it does over voice. Like you were obviously joking, to be clear. Or you were
Well,
using it
yeah,
metaphorically, yeah.
I was using it metaphorically speaking. I did not mean that. Hey,
Yeah.
I,
So,
I kind of I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. There are some people who might have done that. I don't remember.
are you gonna get me in touch with the Man in Black? I sent him a
No,
DM, but I don't think he read it.
no. And after I destroyed my Twitter account, I lost contact with pretty much everybody, and only with a small handful of people I was talking to on Discord. But that's it. Like it was like maybe 5 people I talked to. Because remember at that time, I really didn't know how many people were actually real. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hang on to the people I know for certain who are genuine individuals who I know I could talk to, and I also focus on all my in real life relationships because with the head job that I had at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna leave Twitter alone because you don't know who really is real out there.
Did you ever change anyone's mind on a Gamergate?
Well, there was a bunch of people I talked to that they're moderated in terms like the main thing is that they didn't say what they stopped on saying it was a harassment campaign, and they knew that it was simply certain individuals who were being just jerks. So that's how I moderated. But a lot of the focus for especially anti-GamerGate was the fact that by default, I think this is the stance that it really comes down to a priority assumption, which is that the gaming industry is dominated by white patriarchy, and that's something that you can't really, you know, if you by default believe that this is the default of society, that's a much deeper conversation than simply ethics in games journalism, and or if Gamergate happens to be a bunch of harassers. That's a much deeper issue in terms of changing their idea. But the ideas that could change, like making it more nuanced and who's involved and who's harassing, and that there are ethical issues. And no, it's not about Zoe Quinn being a woman. That's not that was never an issue. It was the fact that Nathan Grayson was using his position to help a friend. It was Grayson who was the main issue, but they always made it about the women. It's like, no, it's not about them.
What do you think that? Obviously, when the stuff before the Gamers Dead articles came out, when you had these scandals, some of which were very legitimate games journalism scandals, but also it seemed like there was a lot of people getting involved because they wanted to talk about the drama. You had a bunch of YouTubers wanting to run drama videos about this, and you obviously had 4chan's Burgers and Fries chat room. Do you think that this kind of language that they use, like burgers and fries in the videos and stuff like that, was sexist language?
No, I don't think so. I
Well,
mean,
because they were one, making jokes about Quinn and not Grayson, and two, because the joke, quote unquote, was that she had slept with 5 people, like the restaurant Five Guys Burgers and Fries.
okay. Well, the reason why, and I think people don't take into account why Quinn was, in a sense, the bigger, more salacious target, is because Quinn had a much longer string of destructive relationships that people could pull out in terms of drama, and like Grayson being one of the last in terms of many other things. Like if you talk to anyone who knew her back in when she was involved, I think in the Toronto game development scene, there was a lot of drama that she caused there. And the thing that's where I think people don't realize, like, it's not just simply that there's like all her past with um not only the game developers but also like just relationships, modeling. There was a lot more material. And so in terms of that, like that made it more, I guess, clickbaity and more quote unquote entertaining to the drama people who are watching. Especially, like, was an internet aristocrat who brought a lot of these things up in the surface. So was it sexist? No, because goodness gracious, how many people online do drama videos on men? Like Chris Chan,
But
arguably.
using, sure, look, obviously anybody who's involved in online controversy in any way is going to have like tons of drama channels and stuff covering them, including, some, including like some really weird stuff. But do you
Yeah,
think that using that specific kind of language, like burgers and fries specifically, is sexist? Because it's obviously a reference to her sleeping around with allegedly 5 people, one of whom was Nathan Grayson, but the other 4 were just like rando people who she allegedly cheated on her boyfriend with. But like, why is that anyone else's business? Why should anybody care about that?
I mean, you could argue that it is, and you could say that, and I think some people actually legitimately made it out. And I think it was not Grayson, it was Eron Gjoni who did that, who called it Five Guys Burgers and Fries because he was talking about the 5 guys who she cheated on him with. Aaron, for you don't know, Aaron is the ex that was cheated on by Zoe. I think he was the one who actually coined it and actually was trying to get that going, and it was picked up by the YouTubers. So I mean, you would pin that especially on Aaron if you want to say that's sexist or not. But at the same time, like, Aaron's a big feminist, and I think it was just trying to get virality and make a joke out of it. I mean, that's the problem. Like, when you start attributing this is sexist, this is racist, you're attributing a motive, and I don't know what the motive was behind the creation of that hashtag. And I believe it was Aaron who created it. So no, I mean, I think that's the problem with the charges of racism, sexism, homophobia, is a charge on the subjective what do you call it, subjective intentions of the person doing something, and that's very difficult. That's very difficult to prove.
Do you think that people, aside from the fact that one of the people was a games journalist, and obviously that had very serious implications given his article that promoted her game over 49 others, aside from that aspect of it, why should anybody give a shit about any of this other person's personal life, whether it's Joni or Quinn or whoever the fuck? Like, I don't care about. I see all these YouTubers too, and streamers,
Oh yeah,
people in my
I
space who
also,
are always
I
talking
also,
about like, oh, this celebrity had a big breakup, and now there's like these juicy texts
oh
that
wait,
got
I
leaked.
think
And like, why do
I
people
think
give a shit? Why should we care?
I also forgot a couple other things that she did. She also crashed another feminist fundraising campaign,
The Fine Young
from
Capitalist
which,
referring to? Allegedly,
yeah,
she did. I don't
yeah.
know about the details of that specific story.
There was also a big TV show that was supposed to be a Game Jam TV show, where she accused the producer of being sexist. I believe people like JonTron were involved in this game show. It was a game. If you look it up, there was a big game show she was supposed to be a part of, where people were supposed to develop a game. And so what the director was doing was questioning why Quinn was even part of the team, because she doesn't have any talent. Because he didn't see her program or do anything like that, and so he was questioning her, and then she brings out the big sexist card as her defense, and then eventually it became a big thing where a whole bunch of like developers were like, we're not going to do this show because the guy's being sexist to Zoe, and it ended up destroying the TV show. There's a whole bunch of drama that I remember reading about and listening to, that Zoe was involved even before like the whole GamerGate exploded. Like, she was getting headline after headline with how much she was trying to get attention on herself and whatever she was making. So that's part of the story, I think. But going back to your question, like, the reason I wanted to bring that up, because I remember there was a lot of stuff that she was involved in, really crashed a lot of stuff and made a lot of enemies, more than just simply this whole thing going on with Eron. So there's a whole enemies list of people who are interested in actually getting back at her. I don't think people realize that either.
When you say getting back
And
at her, what do you mean? Like harassing
or
her on
in,
the internet?
no, not necessarily harassing, but basically seeing her basically seeing her receive her comeuppance in one way or another. Not necessarily harassing her, but in a sense for people to see who she truly is as a person. Because crashing the Toronto game development scene, crashing all these different game shows, destroying the Fine Young Capitalists, supposedly, and that's what the claim was, and that's what people believed. Like, I believed it. I believe that she actually did it because of what I saw, what she was saying, and because that's why they got no oxygen from the press, is because she declared the Fine Young Capitalists to be sexist, even though they're a feminist group. So there's that background. But going back to your question again, can you restate it one more time so I can make sure I got it?
Do you think it was sexist to use this kind of quote unquote like slut shamey language?
I think slut shaming is framing it in the wrong way. I think it's just, here's a bunch of things that this person did that were terrible. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's sleeping around. Everything I mentioned that happened before the Five Guys thing are things that she also blew up that had nothing to do with sex, at least to our knowledge.